Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome CEO Nihi Hotels, James McBride, in discussion with Skift columnist Colin Nagy.
Hi everyone, I'm Colin Nagy. I write the hospitality column for Skift called On Experience. I'm joined with James McBride here on stage today. James has been a lifelong hotelier, an entrepreneur, interesting businessman, and also had a call from his mother at the last minute telling him to wear a tie before he came on stage today. So also a kind and rooted human. But to start, there's a quote I really like, which is, to break the rules, you must first master them. And I think, James, you've worked at the Carlyle, you ran the Carlyle, you worked at the Ritz-Carlton. You've been a lifelong hotelier in these places that we all hold up to be, very rules-based and orderly, but I think your whole career has been very contrarian. So what is the role of that kind of contrarian mindset been in everything you've done?
A little contrarian.
A little contrarian.
But firstly, I'm truly honored to be here today. Colin, Rafat, what an incredible group of people, and I'm very humbled and just feel so fortunate. So thank you so much for that. I was born in South Africa, and as he said, my mother called when I was walking here this morning and said, "This is a big day, are you wearing a tie?" I said, "No, Mom." She says, "Well, a gentleman always wears a tie." And when your mother is 90 in South Africa, you have to listen. So I listened. So this is for Mother. So coming to America, I first started at hotel school in Johannesburg, worked at a hotel called the Royal Hotel in Durban, was in the kitchen for the first year and did all of the areas, and at the same time in a very tribal country, and a troubled country it was in 1983 to 1987. And came to America with my mentor at that point, Ali Kasiki, who is a famed hotelier, lives in California, promising me a job when I arrived in America. So it was a coming to America situation. There was no job for me when I arrived, and I had to look for one. So I always had to go to human resources, I remember, right by the trash compactor with a clipboard, fill out application form. I soon learned that if you go and see the general manager's secretary and be nice with her, try and use the accent a little bit and get things going, they send you down and they treat you way, way better when that happens. Needless to say, I couldn't find a job. First job was at a timeshare resort in Carlsbad, called the Carlsbad and Beach and Tennis Resort. And talking about contrarian, Carlsbad and Beach and Tennis Resort, first timeshare place. People stayed in the hotel, got the toaster, did a tour, bought timeshare. People bought the timeshare and came, but there were no tennis courts. So I thought of an idea of making a deal with a high school next door that people could play tennis at the high school from the morning until 3. So people arrived with their rackets. And when they said, "Where's the tennis courts?" we said, "Well, they're at the high school next door, but you have to play it before 3 o'clock. Needless to say, they weren't happy. Continued on and joined the Ritz-Carlton in its infancy in 1988 as a trainee at the Ritz-Carlton in Boston in the Horse-Schultz era, and was fortunate to open around 20 hotels all around the world and take the brand to Asia, opening Hong Kong, Singapore, and Kuala Lumpur, and then through the transition into Marriott, opening the first branded residence with Millennium Partners and Chris Jeffries' team in Washington, D.C. at 22nd and M. And I got to know the Marriott folks, Mr. Marriott, because it was the first opening in that era, which was extraordinary. It was a very blessed time for me. I learned many things, but broke many rules. So when I was in Kuala Lumpur, it was during the 1997 Asia crisis. Business was extremely bad. So I thought everyone came from Singapore. The best way for us to drive demand would be to give out hot cookies at the airport and change people's plans as they got out the plane. We did that. We moved about 10 people a day. The airport manager then said, could you do something more elaborate? So I thought about it, and there was a truck outside the window. Kuala Lumpur was still a very basic town, and I said, let's load up all the furniture and move it to the airport, create a room at the airport with a piano and a piano player. Everyone that got off the airport, we would give them what was called a VIP visa, and we had cars waiting to take them directly to the Ritz-Carlton. We moved about 50 people a day. Granted, the rate was only about $75, but it was amazingly successful. I had to see Mr. Marriott at the airport once, and Mr. Marriott came. I was terrified. And luckily, he liked it because we were doing the right thing for the owner, and he was a very eccentric man. Then to Millennium, this is pre-September 11th, I was hiring the pianist, and the pianist said, could I have the job to play in the lobby? I said, only if you play at Reagan Airport between the hours of 6 and 8:30 and in the evening, because everyone who gets in the shuttle to go to New York, I want to be sure to give them a gift to give to their husband or wife and to promote the hotel. He thought I was completely crazy. But we did it. We had an airport, we had a piano, we had soap that we cut for people, and the rest is history with those things.
Now, getting into what you've done with Sumba, one of the anecdotes that I thought was very interesting is when you're trying to convince someone from the U.S. to go 28, hours around the world to experience your resort, you want it to feel like the weight of a Rolex, like something that stays with you after. The entire industry is all about experience-led. There's been a lot of hyperbole about experience, but what are you guys doing that actually is resonating with a hard-to-reach audience?
I think starting with the Sumba story, important to note, my business partner, Chris Birch, I met him at the Carlisle, and Chris always wanted me to be an entrepreneur with him, and I was always too scared. I was terrified, to be honest. When I was at YTL in Singapore, he called me and said, there's an island for sale. There's a resort for sale on an island called Sumba. Sumba is the size of Massachusetts or Jamaica, and I guarantee you 99.9% of you have never heard of Sumba. You need to Google it. It's the size of Jamaica, Massachusetts. There was a surf resort there called Nihi. I went to look at it. You could never get there. We helped Chris put the deal together because I was still at YTL, and we went down this journey together with Chris's vision and with the courage to invest in it. But I think at the time, from an entrepreneurial perspective, as I'd always been in big businesses, to be on the island of Sumba, which is tribal, there was one little hotel on it, which was Nihi. People still traded in buffalo. They still carry swords. It is completely wild. They live above their animals, and we were fortunate enough to be able to evolve a very special place already into this total gem that has sort of captured many people's imaginations for them to keep visiting because of the spirit of the people, the location, and many of the facets that make it special.
And one of the data points I think is really interesting is about 90% of the staff of the hotel have actually been trained. There's Sudanese that are working in the hotel. Talk a little bit about how you're building that next generation of hotelier, from the ground up.
I think firstly in Sumba was discovered, maybe the resort 20 years ago, by a man called Claude Greaves, who got malaria 45 times. It's got an extraordinary surf wave, and it's probably one of the only semi-private surf waves in the world, and surfing's become a very popular sport throughout the world. And Claude formed a foundation at that point because, let's just say, beheading and wild tribal life still existed there even 50 years ago. And put a foundation together for the eradication of malaria, education of children, and providing potable water to the villages. If that hadn't have been done, it would have been impossible to continue and have a symbiotic relationship with the Sumbanese people. So 90% of our employees, we have 33 villas on 200 hectares, so it's a big landmass, but small business with over 400 employees that work there. We've become a very, very huge proponent of the economy, but the Sumbanese are absolutely amazing people and are not perfect by any means. And I often will tell the story that it's not my expectation that a Sumbanese employee should know the difference between Pinot Noir or Cabernet. The guest who's staying there, that's their responsibility. We drive an environment that is driven by the employees, that is spiritual in many ways, is philanthropic in many ways, but the guests can learn from the people that live in Sumba and can have an experience that they've never had before. And that's what we've tried to use as a foundation to continually build it.
And that that kind of consistently inconsistent theme is kind of interesting, right? In terms of it's not pitch perfect service, but it's very warm and human service.
Human. I got a letter from a guest, which the guest wrote, "Dear Mr. McBride, we had a most wonderful time. However, your staff were consistently inconsistent with a consistent smile."
Which is great.
So I read it over, consistently inconsistent, and I said, that's about right. If my towels haven't been delivered, they say, please, yes, we'll take your towels. An hour later, you go, have you got the towels? Yeah, we got the towels. Still don't have any towels. Okay, that's fine. So you get away with a lot because of the warmth and the amazing spirit of the individuals that work there. They are extraordinary human beings, but we are always trying to evolve and obviously make it as slick as it can be, but without it being too slick, because that's not what we're looking for.
Sure. I think I wanted you to unpack the idea. Your brand positioning is the edge of wildness, and what does that mean for a guest that's going there that might be used to, a very polished, luxury experience?
I think on the edge of wildness is it's something that we put together because we felt it encapsulated what the experience was. You just have to imagine again. And I ask you, just take a look on the world map and say Sumba Island. You'll see there's this huge landmass called the Forgotten Island. And it's wild, but our accommodations are chic and elegant, but they're not too much. Everything is at the right level and responsible. I hate the word eco. When people call us an eco resort, you eco. I don't like eco. I think eco is a cop-out. I think eco is a cheap way for people not to change your sheets, to give you a shitty shower, and to do all of these things, and it's complete BS, okay? And they put a card next to the bed, and it's all eco. It's, it's not. It's responsible. And being responsible is having a wonderful relationship with the people that are working with you in the island, and it's being responsible in how you build, and it's being responsible in every way. And being on the edge of wildness, it encompasses all of that, where you don't see an airplane, you barely see a boat in the ocean. There are no shops for you to go to that are close by. It's an all-encompassing experience for you to be completely engaged with the people, with the land, and everything that there is to offer.
I think one of the things I'm inspired by with this, because it's been an entrepreneurial endeavor for you in partnership with Chris Birch. How did you get yourself to pull the ripcord and go all in, like the role of dabbling versus focus?
No, I think so. When Chris divorced Tori, he was living at the Carlisle. As many people, when they get divorced, they live at the Carlisle, or if they have a big leak and they have Chubb insurance, they live at the Carlisle too. So that's what happens. And Chris always wanted me to join him. And before that, I think in 2007, he gave me a letter and had a wonderful figure in there of what he would take care of me with, but I didn't have the courage to leave. I didn't have the courage to give up my life, to give up the protection and the comfort of working for a company. So when he called me when I was at YTL with the Yo family, amazing company, he said, go to Sumba, this is what it is. I flew there, you couldn't go, and I drove through these hills, and it felt like Africa. And having grown up in Africa and the tribal, and I just said, I think this place can be something unbelievable. And I said, if you've got to do this, you can't dabble. For the first 6 months I was dabbling. I was sort of being there once every 3 months. And then in May 2013, I said, we got to go all out. So I was there probably for 2 or 3 weeks for 2 years, building it, creating it, doing the marketing, through Chris and our networks are fortunately fairly broad. People gave us a chance. We got unbelievable stories. Travel + Leisure has been an incredible supporter of ours through articles and through obviously being the best hotel in the world for 2 years. And Chris's courage, without Chris, there's no debt in doing those kind of deals. He believed in me and gave me the opportunity, and together we were able to do it. Mm-hmm. Even though there were very dark days. When we were building and it was raining and I was getting chased with people with swords, and I was saying, my peer group said, where's James? He's in Bali. No. Where? He's in Sumba. Sumba? He must have really lost it. Midlife crisis, disaster. I thought I had lost it too. And they said he's definitely written off. And as it became more and more successful, you become more and more brilliant, because that's how life works.
They thought you went Colonel Kurtz in the jungle.
I'd gone completely nuts.
I wanted to talk about what you think the positive role that hospitality can play in the world. I mean, things are a little terrifying. There's a lot of acrimony and division. Why is hospitality important today?
I just think, firstly, everyone can be in the hospitality through all the various platforms. It gives people hope in every type of community. A gentleman called me from Venezuela about 7-8 months ago on LinkedIn, said, would I speak at his MBA class over a video conference? I said yes, because I always believe it's important to remember where you came from. Always give back and take care of the people who reach out to you and help you, who ask for help. He's actually the Venezuela Jim. Isaac is in Sumba at the moment. He does all of our digital from Venezuela. You know, and it's helping people, and it's giving people opportunity. Our yoga teacher does all of our digital. Nihi Sumba Insta, just a little plug's pretty good. Take a look.
And, you know, we have a little bit of time left, but this has been the Small But Mighty section, you know, Nihi's Small But Mighty. What are you going to do next?
We've got a site in Costa Rica, and I'm very, very big on Iceland. I've been there 2 or 3 times in the north. Heliski, salmon, there's just so many things. I think Iceland is fascinating. And we've got one or 2 opportunities in Mexico, and I really like Colombia. But it all terrifies me, I have to say, as to try and do it again in a different format on the edge of wildness. I'm just humbled and very happy to be here and to have had the success we've had thus far.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.